Hi everyone, welcome to the Workgroup Serving Benchmarking Tools Weekly Sync. Um, Today is June 26th. Um, yeah, let's go over the agenda. If you have any items that you'd like to cover or discuss specifically, feel free to add them here in the notes. Um, and if you, also feel free to add yourself to the attendees list. We can get started. Um, Nick, since this is your first one, do you want to give a brief introduction?
Sure. I'm at IBM Research. I'm currently working on model optimization and trying to get an understanding of if you have a cluster and you're bringing in a new model, what's the best way of deploying that model given the hardware you have available, and maybe some SLOs and estimates for what your workloads are going to be.
Cool. Thanks for the intro, and welcome to the Workgroup Serving Benchmarking
Thanks.
Sync. Cool. Let's get started with our topics. So the first one I wanted to start with is after V0.1, we have been doing a lot of testing for different cases to see what are the next set of things that we need to address in terms of making the tool more stable, and at scale we are able to um, still produce accurate results, which has been an issue with a lot of different benchmarking tools out there. Um, Let me share this tab. Yes, mainly V0 and 0. We got it like a couple of weeks back. It went in with a lot of things mentioned here. Jason, do you want to talk about your recent testing and any things you uncovered there?
Yeah. Uh, so first thing, the load generator seems to be doing pretty well. I'm finding it's a little difficult to configure num workers and its max concurrency. So I'll continue to dive into what recommendations we can make to make it easier to configure, and it's going to have to associate more or less like what load you want to generate to what machine you need to run it on. Uh, so that's one observation. The other is that we're actually misreporting. Uh, we were misreporting the latency because we were awaiting the response body in the parameters in which we report the metrics, and we were accidentally getting the end time of the request before the response body. So Sachin actually fixed that with a refactor in a PR last week. But yeah, that one needs to go out to fix 0.1.0.
Makes sense. Sounds good. On your current change, do you want to talk anything about the QPS observability?
Yeah, so this change adds a couple of fields to our report generator for stage summaries, and it's the send duration, the requested rate, the achieved rate, and the schedule accuracy. So the send duration is similar to the actual duration of the stage, but it's just from first request send to last request send time. This would be in like report gen / base.py.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the requested rate just reports the config.yaml rate conveniently next to where we're measuring. The achieved rate is the actual request we've sent over the send duration. And then the schedule accuracy calculates the delta in between each of our actual send time versus our schedule send time, and reports that in the same way we report the other distributions with Summarize. So when you run a stage, you can view the stage summary, and you will be able to see like whether you actually hit your requested rate or not.
Yeah, this is super useful to have, because a lot of times, the default VLLM benchmark tool and a lot of other ones out there could set a requested rate, but then the achieved rate could be very different, and we are not able to see what that is, right? So, and also I feel like, Jason, we should be able to create some test for this, right, where we are able to do like a run against a mock server or something, and make sure the QPS looks good enough.
Yes, we are set up to be able to do that now. There was one other interesting thing with the load generator, and that is actually that at low rates, and particularly when you have a lot of worker processes, they can starve each other reading off the queue, and that causes them to not hit their schedule time because they're all contending for the queue. So
Yeah.
I'm going to continue looking into that. But in general, that's not a problem when you are running over a longer period of time. It would just be like in the first, 10 seconds, you might not be sending the requests according to schedule time, but it'll catch up.
Okay. Anything we need to fix for that?
It gets a little bit more complicated because a part of that fix in general is recommending the correct values for worker concurrency. So I think TBD, that needs more exploration.
Okay, makes sense. Sounds good. And I think Sachin also recently added another one here, which is writing to specific local storage. I think this would be useful as well. So that if we have PVCs or anything attached, you can write to that specific directory. We already have support for writing to GCS, I believe, so we can also extend for other providers. And other recent changes that went in, someone contributed providing an API key to the LLM. This allows if you need like some sort of authentication done, you can actually pass the bearer token to be able to do it. And I think Brendan added support for using like a managed Prometheus setup. For example, if you're using a Google managed Prometheus, you would need to log into your a Google Cloud account. So this adds support for that. I think we should be able to extend this for other Prometheus installations too, which is good. And lastly, there was a change to move from our Makefile to PDM, which is a welcome change as well. Since we already had PDM, but some of our existing tooling was still using Makefiles. So that's all the recent ones from last week. Let's maybe go look at the new issues that we need to triage. Or maybe we start from the top. Yeah, so tokenization failure. So yeah, I think we need to provide some instructions around this in our documentation. People aren't aware that we would need to download the tokenizer for the specific model to generate token-related metrics. This makes it harder to debug, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone wants to take this one? I think it's mainly about creating a secret with your Hugging Face API token if you are running like a gated model, if not just having access to use this, right? And do we specify that in our deployment here? Yeah, it would be good to probably update this one too. I think in the Helm chart, Jason, you're adding that already.
I think I can take that. Take this issue.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Aishwarya. Assigned to you. Yeah, let's update the documentation and we'll leave a comment there. I think the other one here is about the configuration too. Yeah, I had like a config related PR that I wanted to push. Yeah, let me take this one. Let's do that. Yeah, because we have quite a few configuration in our file, I think it would be good to provide some guidance.
Yeah. I was wondering, is it worth working on a sort of separate tool that creates the config based on some kind of questionnaire sort of prompt? You run something and then sort of ask you different things, and based on that, your inputs, it can create the config for you as a initial step before you run perf test.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a good start here might be to just, I mean, we have some preset configurations, right? It would be good to just point to that and provide some information around config. Tool would simplify it. Are you, yeah, are you envisioning like this would be like some sort of a script that we would write that'll take certain input and create the config file, more interactive way, or?
Yeah, I was thinking of something of a interactive Python CLI that creates the config for you. And also it could include the things like Jason mentioned, where it looks at your hardware and recommends the number of workers and things like that.
Yeah, some kind of wizard to guide people through like that. I think might be helpful.
Yeah, it'll require its own maintenance, but yeah, this could be an issue.
It's mainly if we want to take that on right away, or if we want to keep that as a future item, right? I would say I'll create an issue for that, Sachin, and then yeah, we can prioritize it and see if people have samples.
One thing on that, instead of maybe a tool, some of these groups of parameters we can have an auto version, right? So, instead of specifying load and stages, we may want to have auto determination that runs it like past saturation with some distribution of load. Because honestly, that's extremely useful from the Helm chart perspective, where the interactive tool might not be as useful from the Helm chart.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like request rate sweep or something, you can make it like the default setting, and we could run through different request rates till saturation and whatnot.
I think another portion of that is it's plausible we can derive a lot of this stuff just from an endpoint, like model name tokenizer.
Yeah.
API type.
Okay. Yeah, I've captured some of the points here. Yeah, some of these could be their own independent features. So feel free to create separate issues for those, and then we can trash them. Cool. Next, we have the unified input output format. I think, Nick, you added this one. Do you want to briefly talk about it?
So this is a draft proposal for input and output formats. As far as the output format, this is specifically targeting aggregate results. So maybe there could be another proposal for how individual traces look. But the desire here is, as far as the metrics are concerned, we capture any sort of metric that anyone might care about. This doesn't necessarily mean that all benchmarking tools will support every output, but for whatever outputs they do support, there's a place for it. And as far as inputs, this particular example here, it would represent a particular workload at a certain point. So, maybe you're fixing the number of input and output tokens, but in your overall run, you're sweeping them. This would just be a single aggregate point for that. But so there's there's 3 high-level fields. There's version, which essentially describes the schema of this input and output. Then you have a scenario field, and this describes the environment that you're running it in. So what are the versions of the inferencing platform you're using? What hardware are you using? How is it configured? As well as what workload are you testing this against? So what workload generator and what parameters are going into that? This field ought to capture everything necessary in order for anyone to reproduce the results that are in the metrics. And this scenario could, in principle, also serve as a input to a benchmarking tool. The one thing that might be missing here is if you're running a sweep, then I don't think you would want to have every point along that sweep within this one file. So you might want to have multiple files for each of the points within that sweep, and you would have to have a scenario field that that describes sweeps. So one of the areas that I need some help on is trying to define how the workload should look within this, because there's a lot of different workload generators and they take different parameters. So we would like to keep this as consistent and uniform as possible, but still flexible enough that it covers, any usage scenario that someone might have.
Yeah.
And then another place that needs work on this, that this is certainly not correct here, is dealing with heterogeneous setups. So in the example I have here, I'm showing two different types of accelerator hardware. I don't know if this is even something that is realistic. The more realistic use case that I could think of right now would be in LLMD. There's going to be heterogeneous setups between the prefill and decode pods, and you'd probably have the same accelerator hardware, but these would be set up in different types of parallelism. So like you'd have very low parallelism with the prefill pods and very high tensor parallel with the decode pods. But we need to have a way of representing that in here, saying, these sets of accelerators correspond to prefill, these correspond to decode, and you would also want to know how many pods exist for prefill and decode, and then be able to individually look at metrics for each of these. So in the metrics field, for example, we have performance metrics like time to first token and throughput, but then there's also kind of observability types of metrics. So like looking at the memory utilization, for that, you would want to be able to differentiate between memory utilization on a prefill pod versus on a decode pod. You wouldn't want to just have these lumped together. So we need to find a good way that segments this and describes it in the right way.
Agree. But yeah, overall, I think this is something that we need to get to, right? There has been a couple of asks already from the inference gateway team before on having an API which makes deploying a specific setup and benchmarking it easier. One of the reasons with the FMPerf tooling that we are trying to merge into inference purpose to make some of the deployment aspects of it easier. So that's mainly with the input, but even just having like a specific schema which captures like what this test was run on and what are the specific output and the report for like each QPS and all that is important to have, and it allows us to standardize, like you said, across different tooling and possibly like different projects using it for benchmarking too, like LLMD and others. So yeah, overall, like, yeah, I think we should definitely start working on this. It would be good to get some more feedback. I'll add some gateway folks in here as well. And like the challenges you called out, mainly how do we express like heterogeneous setup, because a lot of the initial things that we have been using was like a single server homogeneous, maybe multiple replicas, but yeah, as we get to more heterogeneous deployments, we need to figure out how we represent it here, and especially the metrics part becomes even more challenging because now you have metrics coming from a lot of different places, and just aggregating them might not be as useful, right? Yeah, anyone else have any feedback on this?
I think it's really useful moving forward to support this kind of thing, both for deploying and also benchmarking. I would separate the benchmark results a little bit from the deployment config itself, because you can go to a very high detail in terms of deployment config.
Yeah.
Enable prefix caching, chunk context, and yeah, I can have so many different optimizations, and this file could become really huge and less readable. We could think of ways to creatively separate or segregate things in a nice way, so that it's both readable but also extends to different use cases.
Yeah, agreed. Having it in one place where we could see what we ran against and what the results were is pretty useful. But also, how do we make sure from getting it from becoming too big, right? Where it's harder to parse through things at the report.
Yeah. So my take on that would be like, here specifying the hardware is useful because you can correlate that to the hardware metrics correctly. But expecting this config to be what gets used for actual deployments, that I feel is a bit too much, because you could have so many things that you would be connected to your actual deployments that may not be relevant to this file.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Maybe this captures just the main things from the setup that we want to include in the report, but actually to deploy the specific workload itself, that can be its own YAML. I think we are also trying to have that as its own library. So yeah, it would be good to see.
Yeah, it would be good to hear from the gateway folks and also FMPerf, Chen and others. So it would be good to understand how they think about this.
Cool.
Good if we can start in parallel in InferencePerf to develop some libraries to convert different like job output to this. For the input, I think you already have something, right? Harsha.
For input, are you referring to the existing config that we have?
Yeah.
Yeah, we already have an existing config/API for the input.
Okay. So I think what we need is to elaborate that can unify. It can be merged to FMPerf first, and then we move it to InferencePerf, but it can also be just taking different jobs of output and unify it as this format. And we can develop in parallel. So we got one library to unify the output from different jobs, and the other FMPerf right now we can focus on orchestrating.
Yeah. Yeah, and the unifying output part too, I think we can sort of make it pluggable to where people could add any conversion from. Basically, the thinking was to have different load generators be able to use the same API, right? So separate plugin for that load generator could then report the specific metrics that we want in the format we want.
So the popular load generators we have been using up to now include your InferencePerf, right? And include VLM default benchmarking and GuideLM and benchmark all NVIDIA's GenPerf, GenAI Perf. So we already know what their default format is, right? So instead of pushing the unified format to all of those projects, it's much easier for us to just maintain a library to convert their format to this one.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can always start with
Yeah, agree. We can, yeah, do the conversion as like a, separate plugin or module for each of the ones here. And hopefully, like, we can have the contributors of those specific load gen at the conversion too, if possible. But yeah, we can probably start with one or two initially.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, makes sense. I will put my comment here. So I also am taking care of the the release bot issue of the Docker build, and then definitely the user and password has the proper access. The pre-user password you already configure have the proper access. So I will probably get some PRs out. So Ashok, I need your help to merge it to test the release bot.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, we are over time too. So, any last minute things from anyone? Okay. If not, yeah, feel free to add comments to the issue on any thoughts that you have, and create issues for other ones that we discussed. Yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.